I'm going to put my colours out now. So where's the palette?
Gavin, I've no permanent rose, but I've alizarin and cadmium red.
Have them both on your palette then.
Okay.
Yeah, because your alizarin crimson will do for your cool pinks and cool reds.
Okay.
And also to beef up really bright reds, you can put a bit of alizarin crimson into the cadmium, and that kind of gives you a really crimson color. Where was I? Yeah, put them both out. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's do the palette then. Okay. So I'm going to make sure that I don't. There's titanium white, yellow. The other thing is you put your colors out in the same order every time, and it will speed up your painting because you know where everything is supposed to be. So if you had, for example, there's the cobalt blue. If you had, you've got ivory black on your palette, but if you also have put dioxazine purple on your palette, when they're in a sort of, a kind of a lump like that, you can't tell which one's which. Well, you can't if your eyesight's as bad as mine. So the first thing I do is I make a wash. Okay, so and the wash is burnt sienna in this case. It could be any color as long as it's not white or black.
Mhm.
Okay, so and it's about the consistency of, say, milk. Okay. And what you're trying to do is just cover the whole thing. My hand is moving very fast here, so that's probably why the camera's not picking it up. So well, and the wash will achieve a few things. Okay, the first thing is just psychological. You've made a mark. You've started. You've embarked on this adventure. Okay, and there's nothing. Was it? I can't remember which. It was one of the writers, a woman, and she said, she hated the tyranny of the blank page. And I suppose that's what you have as visual artist as well. You might not start. You might just look at the thing and just think, oh God, it's not going to be any good, so you don't start or something. But so it achieves that psychological effect. The second thing is it brings your canvas down to the tonal level of your palette.
Okay.
If you want to ask a question or whatever, you can just unmute yourself, ask the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. So that's the wash. Now let's go to the thing. Okay, so there is my layout, so I can see, you can see the palette and the reference. Did the reference print out for you, or are you all just looking at it on screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to first of all do a bit of a drawing. Okay. Right. Okay. So that's my horizon. Okay. The boat is just kind of underneath the horizon. I think I'll start it here and end it round about here. Okay. So the point is with when you're painting from photographic references is not to become slavish to them. And you often see that in the art books. So there's the bridge starts here, comes up to there, comes around there like that, and there's an arch here coming around to there. And when you're working at the side of something like this, a river or whatever, you'll find that you've got far less time than you thought you'd have, because there's all the setting up, there's all the things that you forgot, there's the flies that are attacking you, there's the midges at the side of the river. There's all these things that kind of mitigate against you painting, so you've got to paint quickly. Okay, so there you've got trees coming up around here. Don't people become sort of very sort of particular about sort of the things that are actually there, the trees and everything, but they're all sort of just abstract shapes, really. Yeah, that's got that's enough detail, for your trees, because the star of the show is the boat. So I'm going to move that down. I'm actually going to move it down so it's kind of tipped towards us slightly. There, it's there, and that wall there. Now that is a drawing, okay. The thing about the reflections of the boat are it comes down there like that, okay. It's important that you actually register that at the beginning, that you've got this reflection here. It's an important part of the painting. So, and then you've got the reflection of the trees, but really it's the water coming down there like that. The dark coming down there like that. And that's all from there on, reflection of the sky. Okay, got a bit of a reflection there, and a dark there. And then we've got the canopy of the boat. You can tell I'm not a nautical person, can't you? So there's the boat there, like that. Right, so, and we've got the bank disappearing behind the bridge there. Now, in terms of tone, right, it's important to actually sort of know what you're dealing with, because the colors are kind of confusing. So there's our reference, okay? But a good idea, and you can do this with your phone actually, is you can have a look at it in black and white. So if there's a photograph that you want to paint, and even if you're out in the landscape painting, you can take a photograph of what you're painting, and just to see how the values are in the composition, you can just turn that photograph black and white. There's a function in all smartphones actually. So that's just something to be aware of. So for instance, the prow of the boat is kind of lighter than I would have thought. Okay, and even some of the darks around the vegetation. It's darkest underneath the arches, and then just another few spots around the composition. It's important to note at this point as well is where the darkest dark is and where the lightest light is. Very important to note that. Okay, so for me the lightest light is kind of running along the back of the boat, maybe a few points of light sort of in the boat, and the darkest darks are those arches, just underneath the arches. Okay, so go back to this. Okay, hang on, I need to move that, don't I? So you can see it a bit better. You're not missing anything off the bottom there. That's good. Okay, right. So I think my drawing is there. So I'm going to start out with because that's just a detail, that canopy and everything there like that. I'm going to start out with the darkest darks, because in a painting, everything hangs on the darks. So I'm going to get some burnt sienna and blue and mix them together. And that's a chromatic dark there. Okay, so let's have a look. There's a dark there. There's a dark just that arch that comes up to the canopy of the boat. That's a dark there. Let's say that's a dark underneath the boat there. There's another arch there. It's an old stone bridge. Maybe some of these trees can be dark as well. There, like that. Just on a point of paints to use, the paint I'm using is actually Griffin Alkids, which is I think they're good quality paints, but they actually have have alkyd already mixed into the paint. So it's like having liquid in your paint while it's in the tube. I kind of like them because it lets me get the paintings home, without making an absolute mess everywhere. Because they start to set almost by the end of the painting. It'll still take a day to set, but just in case you're wondering about the paints that I'm using. So there's a dark around there, and that's there. Okay. There. And that dark goes up to there. Right. So that looks a little bit dark to me. Just give me a second. Now, I've got to start blocking in now. So that's one stage. That's the first stage. It's the drawing and putting in those darks. Right. The next, now I'm going to start putting in my blocks. Okay, so the blocks, I think the initial one, I think I might do that bridge, and because I'm the artist, I'm in control. I want to set the agenda. I don't want the photo, this photograph to set the agenda, or the painting on, or I suppose the reference, or if I'm standing on the bank or anything. When you turn up to do an en plein air painting or any painting at all, you set the idea of what the painting is going to be before you even get there. You say, I'm going to paint this one in I don't know, an impressionist style, or I'm going to paint this one in dots. You set the agenda. You don't sort of slavishly copy everything just because it's the way it is in front of you. That's not the way to get a painting. So I'm making my bridge warmer than it actually is in reality. There. So we're just going to block that there. This part is a similar block. And that means if it's that color up there, it's also that color coming down into the water. Okay. So that's one block. It's all the stonework. The boat is another block. So the red hull of that boat. So mixing permanent rose and cadmium yellow pale hue together, and it's slightly darker red. So I'm going to put in a little bit of blue with it. Okay, and I'm going to put that in. There. Now, there is a darker part, so I'm just going to put some more blue into that. Maybe even a touch of ivory black. Put that in there. Bring it under the boat. And then that there corresponds. It reflects into the water. And then it comes along here as well. There. Okay. The next block is the vegetation. Okay, so I'm going to get some blue and yellow. And in this palette, when you just mix blue and yellow together to make a green, you get a very toxic green. It's kind of acidic. So what you do then is you add a little bit of red into it, and that will make it into a natural green. Okay. I'm just going to block in the areas where I see the green. So the blocks carry the weight of the painting, because if you get your blocks right, then all you're doing is adding in details to the rest of it. You're just adding in details into the block. So it's a lot less work. The alternative being that you register everything in your painting and it takes forever. So the objective is to simplify. Okay, so that's all reflecting down there. There, it's been reflected here. And here is more. Do you know what? I'm going to send those into the distance. So I'm going to put some white into that green. Send it into the distance. That's better. That one too. And that one too. Okay, coming up to there. Those ones can be in the distance as well. Now there are some light parts to that that stonework. I'm going to add some white to that warm tan color that I made. I'm going to fill that in there. I've filled that in there. I'm not worried about the the details just yet. There's some distant green in there. Next thing is, well, do you know what I got to do before I do anything? Is block in the rest of the reflection into the river down here. That's it there. And in here as well. Okay. Now the sky. Now I'm going to, the sky's very light. I mean, there's a big ominous grey cloud there off to the left, but you don't have to do that, you see. And also, if you were painting out in the field, those clouds would be moving. They'd be scudding along in the sky, especially in Ireland. So let's make, I'm going to make a very light blue just to work off. Okay, just stick a bit of yellow into it. So slightly greenish sky, because we can always add into that later. So let's push this in. Just cover that area there. So we've broken up the painting into separate areas to treat. You know, each color that's sort of significantly different from another area, you treat as a separate block. There will always be kind of intermediate areas, but you just try and sort of try and make everything separate, because that a way to, because you often get very muddy paintings because people try to make radical changes too late in the painting, or they overwork areas, and that's usually a problem of not getting the blocks right. Okay, so here we go. So this is the reflection in the water. The reflections also, they change moment to moment. Okay, so you don't have to do the exact ones that are there in your reference. You can do it. You can do your own job on them, which we will come to eventually. Okay, there's a just treat that as a slightly darker version of what we have there, purple version. So that's all blocked. Let's make sure I do this first. Okay, so we've got a sky that we can work into. Okay, now there are other just darks. I think there's a nice dark red in the back of the boat there. And I'm not sort of making exact shapes. I just see a tone that's there, and I put it in because you build it up like a mosaic. You're putting down strokes and then adding strokes on top. That's the way to think of it. Yeah, just big general shapes. Allow yourself to make a painting, and not a reproduction of a photograph. I think that's the thinking. Go there like that. Okay, so what we got here behind, we've got some. There's a blue. It's a blue. It's a darkish blue. Get some blue and just add a little touch of ivory black to it, and that's just there. I mean, it's a boat, but we don't need to worry about details. We're just putting in little shapes that we see at this moment. I think that's the joy of oils. It's not. You don't have to be specific, and you have to use a lot of paint as well. Yeah, when the painting's got a lot of paint on it, it how do you say it? It sort of it sings a bit more, I think. Now there's a light blue, which is very much like the sky, but it isn't the sky. It's just something on the boat, but I'm putting it in because it's there. There. Can be shaped later. There's a dark, well, in fact, there's the reddish brown superstructure on the boat. So let's put a bit of red, bit of burnt sienna, bit of yellow, and let's see if a bit of blue mightn't darken it slightly to get that kind of mahogany brown. And it starts in the middle of the boat, comes across there, and down there. And then there's that canopy going across, which is a light, very much like the sky again. And it probably is reflecting the sky. There was a time when Roger took me out on a boat. Roger, who is of this parish, he's sitting there, and he said, "I'll come out on the boat in Dunleary Harbour," and I did, on a sailboat. It was a laser, I think, and the wind died. We're out into the middle of the bay, and the wind died. We had to kind of paddle back with our hands. I think it was the last time I ever sailed anywhere. Right, so there's a light down here. It must be the on the glass that's on the front of that boat there. Okay, and just the rest of it, you're looking through the glass at vegetation. There's a nice dark, which I missed at the beginning, but we can put it in now, right underneath that canopy. So no exact shapes, it's just adding in the things that you see when you see them. There's a kind of a dark green running along at the actual water's edge. There and there. there, there, and there to make the trees lovely. This does remind me of the river Erd in it's just outside of Nantes. I was there painting earlier on this month. Gosh, it was beautiful. Yeah, putting in some details in there just to show that there's less light getting into underneath the canopy of the tree. Okay, there's a light running underneath the arch. So I'm just going to use the tone that I had here for the far wall underneath there. And then that reflects down into the water. And then the sky also reflects down into the water. Just grab that down there like that. And then there are some other little bits and pieces there, which could be rocks, could be other boats, but at this distance, who knows? There. A peaceful, beautiful river. There. Right. And down here, there's a dark as well. So I'm building up the mosaic. Okay. That can come out there almost to the boat looks like it's actually sort of landed on the gravel or something. It's quite high in the water. So I'm going to mix in some yellow into that blue because there are some very yellowy reflections alongside the prow of the boat. Along here as well. And also here. So let's fill that in with the yellowy. Tree. A few bits in there. Don't start being specific with your tree or the trees because they don't need to be. All right, so we're coming on now. So there's a light here. Don't know what it is. It's a light there, and I'm just putting it in. And then some vegetation spilling down to the water's edge over here. Now, there's a kind of an orangey reflection from the boat underneath it as it gets to the back. That along there, like that. And then it gets redder. Okay. Now there's a kind of a dark gray. It's from the varnish bit of the wood on the boat rather than the painted part, and that runs up there like that. And I'm going to have to change brushes now. I never told you, in fact, that the solvent that I'm using is a studio safe one. It's called Zested. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. It's not volatile. It's not like terps or white spirit or even Sansador. And for Marjorie, there's a company, what are they called? They do, the company that does Williamsburg. They have their own version of this, I think. So I'd kind of look out for it because Turpentine's just not good. It's not good for your lungs, I don't think. Not too good with prolonged use of it. And then there's an even lighter part here. I just added some white into that tan color. Okay. Now, there are some rocks running along the bottom of that arch there. So I'm just going to put in a light grey. Really, it's just for something that an artist that I always liked from a teenager who used to paint science fiction book covers. And he just said once that he kind of painted spaceships that actually looked as if they might exist. And I loved his work. I used to buy the books because of his covers. Not I did often wonder why the books when I was reading them seemed to have nothing to do with the covers, and it was true because they knew that they could sell the books with his artwork on them, so it made a difference for them. He was really very good. I think he still is. He's online sometimes. I see him. I love his work, but he said that that he put in lots of detail because it gave the illusion of function. But the details were kind of meaningless, really. And I kind of took that to heart. You don't have to actually put in things that are meaningful. They just have to be there. Pushing that tree up there to join with the sky. Up there, like that, there. Push that tree around a little bit, like a big bully. There. Now, I'm going to put in some more descriptive parts to the bank and all the vegetation. Yeah. So there, like that. That's kind of dark there. You don't have to be specific because by next year, or even by the end of the summer, that vegetation won't be the same shape anyway. So you just you put in what you want to put in. Okay, and now the water goes darker as it gets across to the right, putting it in there. And then it's dark in there. So you can see why you have to keep all the blocks separate from the beginning. Because if you get the green going into the red, and then you change your mind somewhere, you'll run into trouble. You will get a mud field instead of a painting. So just shape that a little bit there. Put in some lateral sort of reflections there. Now, actually, I won't do that yet. I'll keep going. I'll do something with the bridge, I think. So I'm going to add some description to the bridge. Okay. I might even add a kind of a light blue-gray. A grey, by the way, is any kind of color that's not, you don't know exactly what it is. You can't describe it except as a grey, and it's tending towards a color. So I'm making a kind of a blue-green grey here. So all the colors plus white. Down here. Just some differences. Make the bridge look a bit more interesting. To make the apex of the bridge correspond with the arch. Yeah. Okay, now back to the sky. Back to the sky. You start enjoying yourself here, I think. So I'm going to mix a pink. So white plus permanent rose, plus a touch of yellow, so it's not too cold. And we can put in some just gentle sort of massage them into areas in the blue, not everywhere. I love multicolored skies. You know, in Ireland we can have such grey skies, and it's nice to spice them up a little bit. Notably, that would have been what's his name? Paul Henry. Beautiful multicolored clouds and skies. So I'm just adding that pink around the sky there. And how about an orange? So yellow plus white plus a touch of red. And although you don't, I'm not blending them. I am kind of feathering them around a little bit. These little dabs. And here's the joy of oils: it's the shaping. You're modeling with the paint. So if you've got one color against another, when you push the paint in to get your shapes. I suppose it's the joy of oils, whereas the joy of watercolors is to be very vague and just let the water with the pigment in it sort of flow around the page. Now, I'm not a watercolorist, but if you've done a course in watercolors, it is a joyful medium. But I think oils is easier. Now, if you do something like that to the sky, it's got to be in the reflection as well. Okay. Pushing that red reflection around a bit. We'll get back to that. As I said, so let's go back to the blue and the white. Push that in. There. Now I can start refining the boat a bit. So there's that red plus blue plus a little bit of yellow, very dark red, because I want to do something with this around here. Finish that prow. Now, there is a kind of a, what do you call it? I wish I knew more about boats, but kind of a lighter painted part underneath. So we'll get to that in a second. So I'm just adding little notes. It's darker there, as less light is getting through to that part of the boat. But the boat is reflected in the water. And now I can start pushing that red, the reflections. The reflections come down a lot further than you might imagine, because I suppose the water is undulating. So you can get parts down here which are being reflected. So now I'm painting actually over into the blue. So you need to be sort of gentle about this. So leave the paint on. So load the brush up. And put it down. I always describe in my class that it's like musket fire instead of a flamethrower. Oh, drop my brush. Yeah, you load up, you fire, and then you load up again and you fire again. That's the way I treat it. So let's put in some dark reflections of the green. So I'm mixing up some yellow, blue, and a bit of ivory black. Okay, so we're going to start sort of describing some of these reflections here as well. There's more yellow in some of them over or on the right hand side. Put a bit of red in there as well. Yeah. Some vertical strokes just to denote that there's vegetation. Just darken that. Now we need to get some lighter sky tones in the reflections. They're slightly yellowish because I'm mixing white and yellow and and blue. And allow the texture to come through as well. I'm not sure if you can see. One of the joys of oil painting is texture. Okay, so we're going to add some of these in amongst the other reflections. That water is undulating around gently, moving up and down, and that's why you're getting these kind of lateral movements in the water, reflecting things all around, even up here. Don't go overboard, keep it simple. And don't flatten your strokes down. Don't tickle them. Don't be a paint warrior, because that will make your that will kind of kill your painting, I think. And then there's reflections up here, and especially up here, and you can put in little lateral ones through those reflections, break it up so it's kind of a wavy shape. Even in here, you can enjoy that bit because who's to know? The reflections are different from second to second. Even up here, these little lines follow the line of the boat. In this case, it's not always the case, but I think it seems tougher to do than it actually is. Because half of it you're making up yourself. And then there are some, I've got a darker green here, and that can go in here. Okay. Now, there's that yellow green around here shape there. That's a reflection of this. And that can be made into those similar shapes. The fact that there are other boats there and everything is kind of immaterial, really. Let's put in that sort of that line below the water, or at the waterline, that paint. It's a lightish blue-gray. So I'm just going to mix a bit more blue into and a touch of red into that grey that I had anyway. And just leave the paint on up to there. There's a bit of a red cast on the on my screen anyway. Let's have a look. Hang on. Picked up something on the brush there. There. Now, there are some little. But you don't have to, in a painting, know how boats work or know exactly where a line is tied. You just have to sort of put in little dabs where you see things. And don't worry too much about the accuracy. You know, for example, just look at Cézanne, the freedom of the strokes. So let's get bright. Start putting in some brights where we see them. There's a bit of a bright there. I don't know what it is, but it's going in there anyway as a bright. There's a bright thing there. If you see it, you just put it in if you think it's going to help the painting. So bright there. I'm going to sculpt the arch there, which is a great thing to do with oils. Oils really work well at that. You know, so if you make a kind of a bags of it, you can always go back and change it by sculpting it away. There. And a bright. I see one here. Now let's get the more blue, sky blue. And start to play with the painting. Just at this point, I'm almost at the stage where I don't look at the reference anymore. Sculpting make the trees more tree-like. You don't have to do individual leaves. Push that around. Now, always in greens, I like to put a bit of red. So I'm going to make up a kind of a reasonably bright red with yellow into it, okay? And I'm going to use it amongst the greens. There's a lot of green in vegetation. Sorry, there's a lot of red in the greens in vegetation. It kind of makes for a more lively painting. And even over the far edge, put in some. Because nobody's to know if it was there or not. It's the painting that's important. In a lot of my still lifes, I would often put a kind of a few gratuitous sort of bright colours in amongst things if they were looking a little bit dull that weren't actually there. Now, what would a bit of blue, a bit of kind of a reddish, purpley, a violet colour really? Would that be nice in the painting? In amongst the shadows. And even in here. My bridge is a bit steep, so I'm actually going to cut it down a bit. Let's have a look. Some sky blue. A bit of a violety, a very pale violet. And keep it at the same tonal range, so a little lighter than that. And then I can sculpt my bridge, so it's a little bit flatter. And sculpt my tree a little bit as well. And all from essentially 5 blobs of paint. I mean, I suppose 6 if you include the burnt sienna. And you could paint a perfectly good painting if you took the black and the sienna off the palette. You'd still get a painting. So that's the thing to do, is to experiment. I would like to put in some darker clouds just to provide more color in the sky. There are clouds there, they're just not these clouds. These are slightly darker than what's actually there. And of course, if it's up there, it's got to be down here as well. So we'll put those in. Don't know where that came from. Once I hit the brush off the canvas earlier on. There. Oh, I just got to get a kind of a bluey grey. I'm going to add in just a few figures standing at that on that bridge. I'm not going to put a football crowd in, but there are people up there. Just make sure you've got nice textural strokes. I'm just going to broaden that line. Got to go even more orangey in that vegetation there. Nobody's to know what the hell is over on the far bank, or what time of year it is. And could put a few more lights there. Don't know what they are, but there. Stuff. A few more undulations in the water there. I'd like to play around with that sky a little bit more, make a slightly yellower version towards the horizon. There's my figures, just painting around them, it's fine. Mess around with the sky. And put it in here. You could go on like this all day, just adding things, as long as you didn't sort of start scrubbing the paint in and overworking it. It's just as long as you don't worry the paint, you'll be fine. You've got a lot of latitude in an oil painting, I think, more than you have with a watercolor painting. Yeah. I think that putting a little thing down there. I can see one there, but it's not obvious. go. That's the black. I think I might put a bit of blue, purpley blue, under the bridge as well. In the shadow areas, under the arch. Let's grab some pure permanent rose, put in a few strokes around there, just for pig iron. That's pure permanent rose. Just to spread the color out over the entire painting. Pick out the color of the boat. And I might just make a kind of a mid-green, bluey grey just underneath the canopy of these trees, just to make them look a bit more solid. But they're all indistinct because we don't want them to be distinct, because they're in the distance and they're only supporting actors in this play. To keep them distant. And then if they're not exactly what's there, no one can say a darn thing about it. And even that one there. Just by this time, if you're standing at the side of the river, you're gumming for a cup of coffee or a pint or a wee. And you're sort of looking over at the yonder bank, thinking, is there a toilet there? Just a little bit of variation in here in this tree. And it's off to the toilet. You could paint. It's like I asked a guy who's what was he? It's a glider pilot. I said, how long can you stay aloft in one of those things? He said, as long as my bladder holds out. I'm not going up in the air with him. Might get more than you bargained for. You can unmute yourselves. How is everybody?
We're
Good.
fine. We're
Yeah,
fine.
good.
Did you get anywhere? Were you were all painting along, were you?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
You paint so fast, Kevin. It's unbelievable.
Well, I've got to imagine. Well, you see, actually, you can paint that fast. It's all in the blocks. The blocks are fast things to paint. All you have to do is choose what it's going to be, complete it, and then all the detail bits. It's like building a house, isn't it? You know, the walls go up really quickly, and the roof goes on, and you think, God, yeah, I'm going to have my house very soon, and then it grinds down to a halt because it's all the details, all the putting in of the electricity and the plastering and you know, the dado rails and everything like that. It takes forever.
Yeah.
Paintings can be a bit like that. So the more you get done in the because you can actually live in a house without sort of dado rails, can't you? Or electricity. But you know, so painting is a lot looser than house building. You can stop anywhere just shortly after the blocks.
Yeah.
You've seen it, I'm sure, many times, how loosely some people paint. I paint very tightly, and I have to paint fast because I'm used to it, because I'm showing people, you know, and I do those demonstrations in the class every time I have a class. If I actually painted the way that I'm inclined to paint, you'd never get the chance.
Yeah.
No.
So
I gave up. I was trying to go along with you, but I had to give up. I said, I'll go back to it again and do it again.
yeah, do it again.
I was the same.
Well, you all have the reference, and
base.
you'll all have the recording of the video
Yes.
for a week. So do go back to it.
Mm.
I bought these headphones today just for this purpose, and now my ears are killing me. It's the most uncomfortable things.
Oh,
Maybe
God.
maybe
They're
it's
probably too tight.
well, possibly is for my massive head, but
Okay.
they've I think they were built for a smaller head, all right. Yeah.
Okay.
God Almighty, it's unpleasant. But
How
yes,
did you
go ahead.
get the violet? How did you get the violet color and the lovely pink? Did you add something apart from the red and the white?
Yellow. Well, see, this is the thing about this palette, right? Let's go back to the
Yeah.
palette. Okay, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? Well, for the pink, I mixed titanium white and permanent
Red.
rose, right? But the thing is that just those two together will make a cold pink,
Yeah.
which you
That's-
might want. You might want that. Okay.
No, yours is nicer.
No, well, but it depends on the use you have for it, because otherwise you put the white with the permanent rose and you put a bit of yellow into it, and that
Yeah.
makes a warm pink. Uh, remember I said that anytime you want something warm, you've got to have red and yellow into it in this palette.
Yeah.
So if you had a traditionalist palette, you'd have, like Barbara has, you'd have cadmium red and alizarin crimson, for example. The cadmium red will only make a warm pink, but if you mix white and alizarin crimson together, it'll be a cold pink. Whereas with mine, you just use the yellow and the red, you know, when you need to make up that warmth or cool color. And it's the same with blue. If you mix white and blue together, white and cobalt blue, you'll get a sky color, but it'll be quite harsh and cold.
Yeah.
So you could mix either red into it to make a kind of a slightly how would you call it, a violet-y kind of sky, which you might
Yes.
want, or you could mix yellow into it and have a kind of a greeny sky, or both. You know, as long as it's light enough, the actual tone is light enough, you'll get different sky colors. And my recommendation is to experiment with it and sometimes put them all in the sky, like a Van Gogh painting.
Yes.
You know, so or Gauguin, or you know, whoever you're having yourself. Just don't go with standard I've copied a photograph skies, because for one thing, in the British Isles, where we obviously are, most of us, it can be as dull as ditch water a lot of the
Yeah.
time, and so paintings benefit from having color in them, even if it's very subtle.